That's good. Can you paper in that little, or yeah, you can even marble it. It's got a little bit of a flat spot on the bottom. So Nick here is taking the first few gathers for me just to save us a little time. And you can see, pretty much shapes it up the same way I shaped up the previous bubbles. It's just bigger. So it's always the same start. You always have to start with this, basic shape. And then we're going to let this one cool down, real cold. We'll take a fresh gather over it. We're going to do what's called stripping the glass. We're going to let a lot of it slide off, so we just get a thin coat. And then I'm going to roll it in some colors. And the colors we buy from a company, most of them are made in Europe, and they make about 270 different colors of glass that come in powders or frits. Frits are like little chunks, or big solid rods. And there's so many ways to apply it. I would make it analogous to the application of color to glass is as varied as the application of paint to canvas. It's basically your raw materials. How you apply it is what's going to control what kind of imagery you get. And we're going to use just a simple kind of rolling and dabbing application of color. And then once we get that all shaped up and blown out, we're going to make what's traditionally called a handkerchief bowl. It's a bowl shape with a ruffled lip, looking a little bit like a scalloped clam. They've been made very popular in the last few years by Dale Chihuly, who's probably the biggest movement for the studio glass industry. He's kind of a living artist in his own right now. But his pieces are very expensive, and rightfully so. So we tend to make some for Christmas or Mother's Day because they're pretty, and it's easier for us to make one than to buy one. I'll take the last one. Alright, so now I'm going to take my last gather. I have to open the door enough that I can get it in, and when it's bigger coming out, it'll come out. And I usually just kind of use a lob technique there so I don't have to stick my hand so far in the furnace. And then this is the stripping. I don't need all that glass, so I'm going to just let that strip off the end of it. And you can have fun with it. Woohoo! And then right at the end, just let that strip off. And then I'll close the door. And we're going to go, now that I have that nice sticky hot layer, I can roll it in this white glass. And it'll just stick to the surface. And then I'll get the middle. And then the tip. And then I'm just going to lightly melt that in, and I'll come back and pick up some of this red. So I wait till that kind of glass is over a little bit. It goes from being that dull color from the white. As it melts, it starts to glassify and become a little shiny. So that's what I look for as a visual clue. I also kind of look to see if it's moving fast or slow. There, now it's starting to glaze up a little bit. Alright, so I'll come out. It's pretty easy to tell when the color's on there where it's hot and where it's not. So, same thing. Just apply this red. And I'm just going to do a simple kind of all-over composition here. And it looks like I'm still a little cold. It doesn't want to stick up by the moil there. So I got to get one more heat so I can get some red up here. So this process of laying on the colors, actually generating the pattern here in a more of a studio situation where you're working for a production, This person's job is called the decorator. He takes all the gathers, sets up the bubble, applies all the colors, or decorates the bubble, and then usually hands it off to the gaffer, and the gaffer actually makes the piece. And while he's making the piece, the decorator's starting another one, so that when he finishes the piece, another one sets down. So there's no time lost. You got to keep in mind that right now we're burning about 500,000 BTUs, about 650,000 BTUs of gas per hour. So we got dollar bills going up the flue. So when this thing's on, we got to be making money out of it. That's one of the nice things about being at a school, is that I am allowed to make some of my own work here, and I don't have to pay the gas bill, and I don't have to pay to rebuild my equipment. I rebuild it, but the school buys the materials for me. So it's kind of a nice way for glass blowers to keep working in glass if they don't want to start their own business. There are some facilities around the country that you can rent. There's one here in town called the Glass Axis, where once you have enough skill, they'll let you use their studio for an hourly rate, and you can make your own work, just so you don't have to own all this equipment. So I'm pretty hot here. I can go get some more color. That's nice and hot. I'm going to come onto this side so I can get it up on that moil a little better. And then it's just a matter of kind of getting it back into shape. Again, going back to that shape, just like before, how I said you always have to kind of start from the same point. We always go back to that kind of primary shape there. So there's the application. So now, once I get this melted in, I can start the blowing process. So I'll get it really hot. I'll marver the tip of it down a little bit. Not so much to change the shape, but to take temperature out of it. So when I blow, it doesn't blow down into the bottom right away. I want it to blow at the top first. I'm going to clean up the shape again. Oops. And then I'm going to try and take some heat out of that bottom there. And then I'll set it on the edge of the marver, and we'll start to blow it up right here. Oh, let's cool that tip a little more. Oh, shit. It's all right. Just wanted to cool that tip a little bit more there. Don't want it to get too thin. So now I'll get a reheat. So I'm going to get this hot enough that we can get that neck in, which means I got to heat the whole piece. So this is always kind of a difficult heat because I have to get that whole mass really flowing, really liquidous, and it doesn't want to stay on the pipe when it's that, liquid, when it's trying to, drip off. And I'm going to again use a little team style here. I'm going to turn the pipe this time so I can control the weight, and I'm going to let Nick cut the neck in for me. There we go. So this is a nice way to work. It saves my wrist because I can, turn with both hands. It allows us to work the bubble a little bit hotter than normal. That looks good, Nick. You want to paper that bottom for me? Go ahead and push it back a little. How's that look? Think we're done? Should we do an Ovolio? All right. I'm pretty well blown out. I'm a little concerned that the bottom might not be as thick as I need it to support the piece. So we're going to put on what's called, the Italians call it an Ovolio. It's just a little egg of glass. Kind of the generic name might be a cheater button or an insurance patch. I'm going to add a little dollop of glass there to thicken it up. So when I stick the punny on, I know it's not going to break it. And this is so he takes a gather, he presents it, we let it fall, and I say flip, and then we hit the middle, we lift up, and we wind that little ball on there, and then we smooth it in. So now I have a little extra meat there to pony up to. I'm going to take a reheat and we're going to flatten that in to make the bottom. So when you make the bigger pieces, you definitely sweat a lot more because the doors have to be opened wider, so you're exposing yourself to that 2,000-degree environment. This is the part where you test your pain level a little bit. It's definitely a sweaty profession.